Okay, so today we're doing a once in a lifetime now for the very first time a collaboration between Anson and me, Gabriel. For those of you who doesn't know me, I am a artist, photographer, educator, and working professionally with photography day in and day out. My channel focuses on visual language and photography, the kind of process that goes through taking a photograph, and less about really like what is the best camera to use for this year or what is the best film, etc. But film photography has always been something that's quite interested personally, and I think a lot of my audience also are very interested in as well. So here I am.
Yeah, I think you guys should really check out Gabriel's channel because there are lots of experience from his professional work. I've been putting out my blog for quite some time now, and it's mainly about different lenses, cameras, and also I want to try to explain more about different tips shooting film, different film types that you might encounter.
If you have just started using film or would like to understand more about film photography, I would like you to check out the link below. I'm offering a free film photography course for everyone who is interested to understand more about different film types and tips about using them. Also, I have another course which is the lens inspection guide with a complete step-by-step checklist for you to understand what kind of problems these lenses would have, so that you know what you are paying for, and eventually to help you to save money. Check out my website if you haven't. There are lens reviews, analog film reviews, and different film photography tips to help everyone improve together. Subscribe to the latest update so that you don't miss out on the next post that I'm going to publish.
How to really appreciate film as well. I think appreciation of film and not just going after it because of a trend, I think is very crucial. I think a lot of these decisions about shooting digital or shooting analog, thinking about what type of film to buy. I mean, film is not cheap. It's getting more and more expensive. So I think a lot of the appreciation and decision making is what we can just go on and on about. Hopefully we're going to cover some of the things that our audience are most interested in. So definitely watch to the end. Okay. Well, so should we start with the first experience?
Yeah.
You prompt the question.
Yeah. Before we talk about anything about film or the topics that we're going to cover later, the first question is I want to ask Gabriel is what was his first film? Obviously using a film camera experience, and what does it look like to you?
I mean, not to bore everyone with, my first camera and this and that. But just to answer you quickly, my first camera was a film camera, although I had experience of a early age digital camera, pocket camera. But really just taking photos that I think was taken by myself and going through the process of, I really chose that moment to take that photo, was a film camera. Just because it kind of shows my age. Photography to me was film photography. No questions asked, because digital wasn't really developed when I learned. And I went through school learning photography. So it was more about fine art, but photography was my major. So everything like day in and day out was going in and out of the dark room. And kind of automatic, manual, medium format, and even large format. I had the privilege to really try all those out. So that was like my experience, and it was film photography was photography until after I graduated and going into work and all that. Then I started to really shoot digital. So it was kind of like the other way around.
Yeah, for my very first film camera experience was I just picked up a film camera in a garage sale. It was extremely cheap at the time, and my first roll of film, I just randomly shoot something, and I still remember vaguely about. My friend told me you have to get the exposures right, otherwise your film shots will be ruined, or you're not possible to see anything. So I was kind of scared, but at the same time curious about, and also very excited about what does this tiny roll of canister can comes out. And when I received the photos, then I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Although the camera actually had some malfunction, the camera, the film actually overlapped it. But it's kind of interesting because it became a double exposures. Until, later on I learned that there's called double exposures.
Right.
And yeah, that is pretty much my experience.
That's really cool because that kind of brought up one of the things that I wanted to ask Anson was that what are the, well, it's kind of obvious question. What are some of the cons of using film and also shooting analog? And you kind of mentioned the kind of mistake and the kind of things that people would really warn you about. Oh, be careful with this, be careful with that. There's a lot of technicality in the process of shooting film and things to kind of avoid, quote unquote, because you can really use it to your own creative advantage, like what you just mentioned about double exposures. So are there other cons about shooting film that you just at the top of your head that you can share?
Yeah, I think I really agree with Gabriel's point. All these mistakes, of course, we want to kind of avoid that, but it also became my precious lesson learned from all these kind of stupid mistakes that I made from developing a film or exposures messing up, setting a wrong ISO.
Yeah, I mean, like you learn about pushing the film and telling the company or developer to help you to push the film because you accidentally set your ISO wrong, right? So you actually gained more from your mistakes. And a lot of times that can really help in anyone's journey in developing as a photographer, I think. So I mean, from a professional point of view, back in the days, a lot of photography, or in terms of the industry, people think about photography as a very professional practice because they can't even do a proper exposure. But nowadays it's more like you buy a camera and you can become a photographer like automatically, professionally. Makes the industry a much more competitive. You have to think a lot more about why you're shooting what is in front of you and how you're shooting it. So less about, I can do a proper exposure. I think that kind of thinking also changed some of the reasons for shooting film as well, because slowly that has become less of a standard for the general photography public. Why do we still shoot film in today's age? That's a question that I really want to hear from Anson, for someone who is basically circling his discussion and channel all his videos and blogs about film and shooting analog. So just curious about your view on that.
I kind of know what film looks like, but maybe the newer generation haven't seen that. Then they, after finishing a roll of film, when they look at it, it's entirely different from digital experience. And I think this is the first one. And the second one is the convenience. Everything right now is too convenient. We have a digital camera, we can editing photos, getting the exposures right, but film kind of like easy to mess up.
Right.
Yeah. And you want to treasure something that is limited, and you want to try it at the same time because you don't know what is gonna in the result comes out.
So the film look, I think, so following up the first point on the film look, were true in some way because you mainly mentioned that it's different from the digital look, and a lot of the newer generation, younger photographers and younger generations, they kind of get to know photography from a digital screen or how the image is rendered digitally. but the film look can be a better or a worse.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference, but they must be attracted to the film look in a good way.
Yeah.
So maybe you can probably elaborate a little bit on like what exactly is the film look and why is it attractive to them.
The thing that I found very different is the micro contrast,
Right.
because it's something that is involved in an actual chemical reaction between a physical negative and the chemicals, and also with light. So each time how much light on a physical negative is different, and based on different situations that you use different kind of film, it achieves the result differently. You put the filters on it, you overexpose it a little bit, or even underexpose it. So for example is, if you shoot let's say one negative film, you think you want to get the correct exposures by following the meter, but somehow you forgot about it and you maybe underexposed it. It kind of gives you a different look. I would say happy accident. Yeah.
Right. That's true. And so in particular, I think the texture, like the grain structure, of course, like sometimes people go crazy about, oh, you're shooting a higher ISO, so the image is really noisy. But with film, it's like, oh, I'm purchasing a 1600 ISO roll of film just because I wanted it.
Yeah.
So you kind of decide on that even before going on a trip. Whereas like digital is like, oh, it's so dark here, oh, I kind of have to use 3200. It's more like problem solving, getting the job done. At least I have some sort of visible image, and I'll just really push the exposure in the raw processing software. So I think really embracing the kind of benefits of what the property really is to begin with, and then going out and be creative and using it. I think that's a really good kind of practice and thinking process to embrace. I think that's really interesting. I think the challenge is worth going through the process and being prepared ahead of time is a very good piece of advice. Just don't go overboard and let the stress really take over your creative brain power. Just leave some space for yourself to be creative. I think one of the point of how being a film photographer and going through the process of or maybe more trouble of achieving an image, it's more like nowadays you text someone or on their social media you do a direct message. It's very convenient and very fast, and if you take the process of really calling someone with the voice call and just speaking to them, they would feel very differently about that relationship, and that kind of almost sums up the whole film photography process. I mean, you see like all these vinyl players behind us, and this is Anson's collection. It's like brewing coffee and going through the trouble of hand dripping. So there's a delay of result that you see, right? And that delay, I think, is worth discussing as well. Like, how does that delay of achieving the result actually you feel like helping, being creatively and using the medium? Does that affect you in any way?
I think I would use the term imagination. Because I think in the visual world or anything applied to hobbies or etc. Before you do something, you always have an imagination in your mind, using different types of film, using a film camera, how this picture is going to look like when I develop it, or at that point of time when I hold this camera. There's no right or wrong, but you have an kind of like visual image in your mind that you want to achieve. And I think this imagination is very important in different aspects, because that will cause the excitement. I think also the experience is why people love or want to shoot
Yeah. I think that's really good point. The excitement,
Yeah.
because a lot of people, when they first started shooting film and analog, they get very excited about the physicality, the cranking, the sound. But honestly, I don't think those are the main points of why it is so attractive. But that excitement of waiting, that excitement of you're also playing a part in revealing the end result, and certain areas are also a little bit out of your control. Like if you don't develop your own film, you don't choose your own chemical, then you're leaving it to someone else, a third party, to take place. So it's almost like a collaboration in some way. I mean, there are many types of analog cameras out there: 35 millimeter, medium format, large format, that kind of thing. But also different kind of systems like single lens reflex. There's twin lenses, and I know that the majority of discussion in Anson's channel circles around rangefinders and that kind of quite a spontaneous and quick to shoot kind of practice, particularly in the rise of today's trend with street photography. I think a lot of people are also very getting into photography because of a street photography camera that they have in hand, even digitally. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what kind of attracted that kind of rise in attention to street photography and the rangefinder system.
Okay. So the very first point, maybe I answer on the rangefinder part first. I found it extremely difficult to shoot. You have to overlap two images to make it
to get a
to
sharp
get the
image.
shot. Yeah.
And it's very hard to see especially when it's dark, right?
Yeah. And that was my first camera, and then I took a few rolls, and then later on I discovered Leica by accident.
I wish I have that accident.
That accident was actually watching a Japanese drama, and
okay.
someone was deciding whether he should buy a M7, which is a rangefinder camera.
What kind of drama is that?
And then I paused that drama and look at it. Oh, this looks
cool.
This looks cool. So
Yeah.
beautifully designed camera. And then I tried to look up the Leica camera, and at the time I was still studying, and almost all of them I couldn't afford it. But at the time I had the part-time, so I bought one. How good it is, first thing is, it's not as chunky as a single lens reflex camera like the Nikon F3. Don't get me wrong, that is also my favorite camera. It's not light, it's not that chunky. It's just easier to fit it in your bags, or just simply use a camera wrap. And another one is its design, because when I first received my M6 at the time, I was expecting something more than just a few buttons. And I look at the camera, I was thinking, oh,
That's it?
What did I buy? I paid so much for a camera that has so little function. And I was really surprised at how Rangefinder tried to keep everything neat and just keep things that is useful. I think that is the functionality part. And another one is the rangefinder itself. Why? Because for those haven't tried rangefinder camera, maybe borrow your friend's camera or go down to a camera store nearby. If you look at the viewfinders, there are a bigger window, and then also there's a frame. That frame actually tells you what kind of image is being captured. It is not 100% right, because it's just a suggested frame line for you. But the good thing about it is you can also see what is around that frame, so that you can move freely to compose.
Well, you move your body more because it's not a zoom lens. Like, you have to really position yourself ahead of time before you hunt for that subject, because your lens isn't zoomable. So you're being a bit more quick on decision making.
Yep.
And you have to be quick on your move as well. I think one of the things that, well, for those who doesn't really have experience shooting rangefinder, the viewfinder itself and where the lens actually receive light and expose onto the film is a different portal. It's a different compartment. So it's not like single lens reflex where your viewfinder is exactly where the lens is going to receive light onto the sensor or onto your film. So I think that's one of there's slight discrepancy between the two, but the benefit of it, like Anson said, was that you can see a bit more around the image and then, capture exactly what you want, because every bits of the image count. Like you might not want that person to be completely in the frame, but you might not want them to be out as well. You just want them to like walk half into the frame and cropped off, so that it feels like it's a continuation of something. Perhaps you can be very surgical in terms of precision with rangefinder, which is really cool. I think the system changes your creative practice in some way, which is really interesting. And I assume that you're happy about this change and never look back after that, right?
Yeah, correct. But of course, speaking about that is, I won't say I will only stick to one system, because creatively you worn out one day and you want to look for something else, like a panoramic camera, you want to look for a medium format camera. That's all right. Because if you try this and you found that you don't like it, that's a good thing, because you know that you don't like that and you want to go back to Leica and then reapply what you learned and start something new.
Exactly.
So I would highly recommend everyone to try rangefinder and also try SLR cameras to see which one you like. Maybe at a certain point of time that you like a rangefinder camera, but some point of time that you will want SLR.
Yeah, we're not suggesting you to spend money on different types of cameras. We're just suggesting you to make more friends. Because like for me, I don't own a Leica. I've never really shot with a Leica, to be honest, but I shoot on film. I shoot 35mm. I shoot medium format rangefinder, which is not a 35mm rangefinder. It's a similar process, but I just have less, number of shots. And but I can print bigger. So like my process is more like, I take my time and make one exposure, and I might blow it up if I have the chance to. And so I think, just trying different types of cameras and don't be bound down to one system will really help your creativity to grow. So that's a really good point. To be honest, I work professionally with photography, so I do a lot of photography day in and day out. But honestly, almost 99.9% are all digital. And that's mainly because of most of the clients wants a quick return, right? So to speed up that process, obviously I can't wait for the shop to develop the film and scan it. So why do I still have my film cameras? Because I do it whenever possible for either work or leisure. So if I go on a trip, I would bring my film camera because it helps me creatively to really just jump out of that box. So I think that's it for all the questions that we have prepared for film photography for this particular video, and also talking about film cameras and also shooting out on the street, particularly about rangefinder. And really, I think I've learned a lot, and hopefully everyone benefits from today's session. We have some particular giveaways that we want to share with you. So how does that work?
So let's select 3 best comment in the comment box. So first, what you need to do is comment below in the video, and we'll select the best camera stories, film photography experience based on what you said, and then we'll select the winner and notify you via message.
And I'm gonna look through Anson's collection of films. We're gonna find some hopefully films that you might not have experienced before and just try it out. So for those 3 winners with the best comments, we will send them your way. That's it, really. Like, share, do all the good stuff, show some love.
And if you have any particular film questions or photography questions, of course, feel free to ask me or Gabriel, and we're happy to help you.
All right, so we'll see you in the next video.
Yeah, see ya. Bye.
Peace out.